Stronger storms, higher winds, more effects here in the upstate and western North Carolina.
It looks nothing like it once looked.
And those in a storm's path need to be prepared. Our weather team is tracking it all to keep you informed and your family safe. Tonight, WYFF News 4, forecasting our future, Hurricane Outlook.
Well, good evening and welcome. I'm WYFF News 4 Chief Meteorologist Chris Justice. Hurricane season starts in just 6 days, June 1st to be exact. Tonight, the entire WYFF 4 weather team, Perella Lewis, Griffin Hardy, and Sydney Sullivan will join me to help you get prepared. From a first-hand look at what wind can do to a home to a new technology being tested that could affect the future of hurricanes as we know it. We will take a look at every aspect of hurricane season so your family can be informed and stay safe. When we start to look at hurricane season forecasts for the season, we always have to look at what's normal. And recently, we have to also look at what is the new normal. Now, while we can see a hurricane at any time during the season, the peak of hurricane officially sits at about September 10th. But the new normal changed just recently. You look back at 1981 to 2010, the average amount of storms per year were 12, with 6 hurricanes and 3 of them becoming major hurricanes. But based on the new averages, 1991 to 2020, we had to change them. Frankly, there were more of them, so that changed the averages. We're now up to 14 being normal, with 7 of them being hurricanes. Now, early in the season, we get fronts that settle down in Florida, and that's usually a hot spot that goes across Florida. By July, we start to look deeper out into the Atlantic and the Caribbean. Now, by August, that's when we start to get more action, a high risk for storms that form near the Bahamas. And then by the peak of hurricane season, we look deep out into the Atlantic, those long track ones that have time to get stronger. That can threaten the Gulf or the Atlantic. And as we go into October, we get those fronts again. It's starting to get cold in the United States. We get those fronts that can stall out, give us action right in there. And yes, hurricanes can form in November, usually farther to the south. Now, while we can see hurricanes at any time during the season, there are certain storms that are more likely at certain times of year. Meteorologist Perella Lewis takes a closer look for us right now to break down that risk.
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, typically we can see hurricanes before June 1st, and we can certainly see them after November 30th as well. But in terms of the peak, when we generally see that statistically, that is for the 1st and 2nd week of September. So, of course, the question is why? When people think of September, we typically think of more, late summer getting into fall. Well, here's why. There's 2 reasons. One is warmer water. The ocean temperatures are nice and warm during the summer. We have those warm days in June, July, and August, and that certainly helps to heat the tropics. But because water temperatures warm slower than land, it takes a little while, and it holds on to the heat longer. It also takes a while for that to cool back down. Then we've got to look at wind shear. Wind shear is typically at its lowest in August. So right here comes June, July, early August. We've got a lot of wind shear. Well, when you have wind shear, that can interrupt development of tropical systems. Well, at the end of August, that wind shear starts to decrease. That's typically when it's at its minimum, and that means it gives a little bit more freedom for a lot of those storms to develop. So that's why we typically see around September when we get into that hurricane peak.
Great information. Thank you, Perella. Now, the 2021 hurricane season was a big reason we set a new tornado warning record in the upstate and western North Carolina. That included Tropical Storm Fred. That day, we saw 35 tornado warnings alone last August because of that one storm. Now, 2020 was also a record breaker, mainly in terms of the number of hurricanes. There was a record-breaking 30 named storms, with 12 of them making landfall in the United States. 13 of those 30 storms became hurricanes. 7 of them were major hurricanes. These storms broke the previous record with 28 named storms back in 2005. Now, hurricanes can cause damage far from the coast. Sometimes these storms can be just as deadly this far inland as it can at landfall. Meteorologist Griffin Hardy takes a closer look at 2 tropical events in our area many will never forget. One almost 20 years ago and one just 9 months ago.
It was back-to-back tropical storms, the remnants of both Hurricanes Francis and Ivan, that produced extreme rainfall in western North Carolina in 2004. These storms were only 2 weeks apart. The soil in Macon County became so saturated, the top of Fishhawk Mountain gave way, cascading into a deadly debris flow down the side of the mountain.
The original reports came in, and a lot of them were from amateur radio operators. We were getting reports that there was a huge flood event. There was a whole community that had been wiped out, which, when you hear that, it's a little hard to comprehend.
The debris flow destroyed everything in its path, including several homes along Peaks Creek, where 4 people died and several others were seriously hurt.
And it took us probably 12 hours to really wrap our heads around the fact that we had what really got determined to be a debris flow.
Just last year, Tropical Storm Fred hit Haywood County hard. With over a foot of rainfall, it caused catastrophic flooding along the Pigeon River.
So the most significant damage occurred in the Caruso area. That's really kind of a ground zero where we saw the most flooding at. And then it also extended all the way into Canton and Clyde.
According to the National Weather Service, in Crusoe, the Pigeon River rose to a new record level, beating the previous record Ivan set in 2004 by more than 3 feet. As the flash flood swept homes and recreational vehicles downstream, 6 people in Crusoe died.
As the remnants of Fred came in, all that wind was going up the eastern slope of the Appalachians. So that would be right up the mountains in Haywood County and other places, and those areas of upslope flow got exceptionally heavy rainfall amounts.
A lot of people assume in western North Carolina that hurricanes don't affect us, but in reality, particularly those that work their way up out of the Gulf, we tend to have some fairly significant flood events based on those hurricanes.
Even though the mountains we call home can be charming, knowing the added danger they pose when hurricanes come through is important to remember now that we're closing in on this year's hurricane season. For WYFF News 4, I'm meteorologist Griffin Hardy.
Powerful information. Thank you, Griffin. Now, when it comes to having supplies during a storm, waiting too late can lead to a big problem. So it's important to prepare now. Meteorologist Sydney Sullivan joins us with a few easy things you can do right now that might come in handy down the road.
When it comes to hurricane season, it is important to be prepared for whatever comes our way. Have emergency supplies and a plan laid out before the storm hits. Experts also recommend getting a weather radio and having an evacuation plan in place in case you're in an area that is unsafe. You should also build an emergency kit with things like food, water, a flashlight, and any medical needs like a first aid kit or other prescriptions. And for more information on how to get ready and stay safe, head to the Red Cross's website. There you can download a free app and find more resources. And a reminder, the South Carolina Department of Emergency Management has a website dedicated to keeping you safe if a storm approaches. Hurricane.sc has all the information you may need ahead of the season, including ways to prepare, your evacuation zone, and other helpful resources. And always stay up to date with the WYFF 4 weather team for specifics on keeping you and your family safe.
Thanks, Sydney. Coming up on forecasting our future hurricane outlook.
We often think that there isn't anything we can do, and that's just not the case.
There is a place in South Carolina that makes its own hail, blows full-size homes to shreds, all in the name of safety. We take you inside next. Welcome back. There's nowhere else like it in the world, and it's right here in South Carolina, a place that builds full-size homes just like yours and mine just to knock them down. It's all in the name of safety, and sometimes the results are stunning. WYFF 4's Perella Lewis gives us an update and a rare look inside.
It's a state-of-the-art facility that will blow you away. The Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety can test structures like nowhere else.
It's the only thing like it in the world.
This $40 million facility is funded by the property insurance industry and is located on 90 acres of land in Chester County, South Carolina. It's the only full-scale research center, and it's designed to save lives.
We do building science research to understand how weather impacts our homes and businesses so we can build better, stronger homes that are better prepared for the severe weather.
And part of that testing is creating things like hailstorms to test roofs and ultimately make them less destructible.
So back in 2012, we started sending a team out into the field to observe hailstorms.
16.1.
How big is the hail? What's its diameter? How much does it weigh? How much strength does it take to crush one of those hailstones?
And that allows this team of scientists to create their own hail and recreate even the most extreme storms.
This allows us to set up our own conditions that can mimic what happens in the real world, and then we can test it over and over and over again.
The heart of this facility is the over 100 fans that draw enough power equivalent to 9,000 homes turning on their air conditioning at the same time.
One additional benefit to being in this chamber is that we not only can just test random wind speeds, we can actually take wind speed records from past hurricanes and then put those into our programming system and actually mimic the exact same winds that we saw in, so for example, Laura or Rita or Florence. Any of those storms, we can import those wind records into our system and kind of see what that is going to be doing to a structure.
And the research has helped create building guidelines for every single state and highly important recommendations for each and every home.
Garage doors are a big weakness for homes that allow the wind in. That's why here in the test chamber, we've actually proven that having a wind-rated garage door can help to keep that wind outside of your home. When you let the wind in the home, that's when it can push forces on the insides of the building, can push up on the roof. That roof loss can lead to other failures throughout the home.
You can see if your garage door is rated for high wind simply by checking the sticker on the inside. And if it's not rated for wind, Dillingham recommends making that a priority and make sure your roof is fortified.
We have 3 levels of fortified. Fortified gold is great for new construction. When you have that opportunity to go all the way and look at all your connections from the roof to the walls to the foundation. But so many of us live in a home already that's already built. Every time you re-roof is an opportunity to increase your home's resilience to severe weather.
The overall goal is that if your home is hit by a storm, the damage is minimal enough that you're not impacted for weeks or months on end, that you can still live there because most of it is still intact.
When we think about severe weather and hurricanes, especially like a Category 5 hurricane like Michael, we often think that there isn't anything we can do, and that's just not the case. There are things we can do. Some of them cost a little bit of money, but by making those cost-effective measures, we really can reduce the impact of severe weather and hurricanes on our lives and on our communities so that hurricanes aren't the end of a road. We can keep going after the storm.
Wow, fascinating. That was Pearl Lewis reporting. If you'd like more information on how to make your home safer during severe weather, the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety has detailed guidelines on its website. Now, when storms are in the forecast, you'll likely hear us start to designate impact or alert days. Here's the difference. When you see these yellow icons, it means it's an impact day. That means out of the ordinary weather is expected that day. This will let you know the hours and the days that we expect weather to be impactful to your outdoor plans. It's like a highlighter for us on our weather system. Examples of an impact day are especially cold or hot days, a washout with rain, or windy days. That brings us to alert days. Anytime you see the red icon, it means that strong to severe weather is likely to impact your family. Think dangerous weather with the red icon. Weather conditions that would prompt an alert day: flooding, tornadoes, tropical storms, and hurricanes. Now, coming up on our Forecasting Our Future Hurricane Outlook.
There's been some other attempts, of course, but haven't been successful. We are successful so far.
Of fighting nature with nature. It might sound far-fetched, but one group is working to stop hurricanes in their tracks, and some early tests are working. Well, as hurricane season ramps up, you'll hear the WYFF4 weather team talking a lot about different categories of storms. That's important because the higher the category, the more dangerous the storm is. Meteorologist Griffin Hardy explains.
Let's talk about the scale we use to measure the strength of a hurricane. It's called the Saffir-Simpson scale. It's a 1 to 5 scale that's based on the strongest winds in a hurricane at any given time. And any tropical system that has winds above 74 miles per hour, ranging up to 95 miles per hour, that's a Category 1 hurricane. Typically, this causes minor home damage, maybe snapping a few trees and causing some power issues. But moving up to Category 2, where the winds are 96 to 110 miles per hour, roof and siding damage becomes possible. Shallow trees can fall over very easily, and significant power outages become likely. Then you continue up the scale to Category 3. We're now in major hurricane territory. The winds range from 111 to 129 miles per hour. Major home damage becomes possible, both from the wind and from storm surge along the coast. Power and water, they could be out for a few days, possibly even up to a week at a time. The damage starts to look catastrophic as you move up to Category 4. Winds 130 to 156 miles per hour. Most trees are knocked down. The power and water could be out for weeks at a time. Storm surge could be up to the first level of a house. And finally, Category 5, most framed homes are destroyed. These storms are really rare. 157 mile per hour winds are higher, and they make landfall once every few years, but the damage can be unbelievable, destroying most framed homes, and the power could be out for weeks or even months at a time. Back to you.
So visual. Thank you, Griffin. Imagine stopping one of those hurricanes before it hits. One group is trying to do just that, and the group says early testing might be onto something. Sydney Sullivan is here to explain.
The last few years of hurricane season have been nothing short of an active season. But imagine a world with fewer hurricanes and less destruction. No Hurricane Florence of 2018 or Matthew of 2016. Instead, a summer just enjoying the waves. Year after year, hurricane season leaves its mark, and lives are completely turned upside down. But with each hurricane, technology, research, and data gets better.
Tropical Storm Larry set to become a very strong hurricane.
And hopes to shape the future of our spaghetti models.
It was in 2005, actually. There was Hurricane Katrina.
And it was that monumental hurricane that founded the Norwegian company Oceantherm, with the goal to weaken tropical systems by one simple fix: cooler waters.
80 Fahrenheit is the limit where the hurricane is getting energy from the ocean to build up. So the critical point is to reduce the temperature.
Hurricanes thrive off the warmer waters for fuel. By cooling the water even a few degrees, a tropical system will have a harder time to survive.
Worked on a submarine many years, so I knew that the water was colder below, and I was thinking, okay, so why don't we use the water in the deep to reduce the temperature on the surface?
Diving hundreds of feet into the ocean, the colder waters are brought to the surface using bubbles.
The bubbles are doing nothing else than taking with them water and creating an upgoing current. And this upgoing current is mixing water all the way from the bubble curtain to the surface.
Norway has used this technology with underwater pipes. Although for the opposite reason, the concept remains the same. The technology may sound far-fetched, but so far, the results are promising.
So with a fleet of ships, 10 to 20, we can move around and working preventive. And you have to be a day or two at least in front of it. You can reduce the temperature in that area where it's going into. So maybe it won't develop into a hurricane, but stays on a tropical storm level.
The research and computer simulations are still in the works, but years from now, the hope is to bring this to the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico.
How great would that be? Thank you, Sydney. Now the data is in. We've combed through it all. I've fine-tuned my hurricane season outlook for the 22 season. That's next. Welcome back. When I do a seasonal outlook, especially when it comes to hurricanes, I look at a bunch of different ingredients, but the three main ones this year especially, the fact that we have no El Nino. It's actually a La Nina pattern. We have warm sea surface temperatures already and lower pressure. I'll show you what I mean on that in just a moment. Now, the El Nino factor is a big one. The jet stream is very active during an El Nino year. Now, remember, we don't have that this year. So basically think of this as being one less thing in our favor. Now, an El Nino year would basically increase the wind shear in the atmosphere, and that can usually take away hurricanes before they even get started. Since we don't have that, that's one thing that's going to lead to an above average year. When I look at my forecast, average would be 14 named storms. I think we're going to be just above that with 16. When I look at hurricanes, I think we'll have 8 hurricanes, one above the average, and I think our major hurricanes will be right on the money at about 3 compared to normal. Now, some experimental data in from Colorado State University. They're on the forefront of hurricane forecasting and some of the latest tools as far as models are concerned. Now, basically, all the data is in saying there's a 76% chance of a named storm impacting the coast of South Carolina. That's 19% above normal. So comparing it to an above normal year, we're about 19% more likely to see something impacting us, whether it be a tropical depression or a tropical storm. When you look specifically of the chances of at least one hurricane hitting the coast, it sits at about 44% for South Carolina and 56% for North Carolina, and that's about 15 to 20% above normal. Now, the major hurricane impacts, that's a little bit more rare, but still sits at about 5% above normal for the year. And of course, the Outer Banks, due to their geography, they stick out a little bit more. So I think the Outer Banks in North Carolina will be a little bit more prone this season due to the way that the storm systems and the patterns are setting up. We hope that this has been helpful. Our team, Perella, Griffin, Sydney, we are so committed to pouring into the data and keeping you safe. That's our goal at the end of the day. And we want to thank you for joining us for our forecasting our future hurricane outlook. And as always, stay safe and stay aware. Download the WYFF4 mobile app right now to keep aware of any storms that may be coming our way. Have a great night.